Hello and welcome to this week's edition of 50 Years Serving the Island, where each week we bring you highlights from the Manx Radio archives as we celebrate 5 decades serving the public in the Isle of Man. In 1968, Manx Radio was transferred into public ownership to become the island's public service broadcaster, and this morning we're going to look at 2 famous landmarks in the east of the island, one that no longer exists and one that very much still stands today. The Millennium Oakwood in Braddon was officially opened in the year 2000, and shortly we'll bring you highlights from our live coverage of the official opening. But first of all, we're going to look back at a building that stood for many years on Douglas Promenade, the Palace Lido. Prior to its demolition, Manx Radio took a look back at the history of the building in this special feature, originally broadcast as part of the Midweek in Man programme in 1991.
Just over 102 years ago, the first building on what is now the Palace Lido site was opened in 1889. 32 years later, it was completely destroyed by fire. It was rapidly replaced by the famous Palace Ballroom, now known as the Lido, but it too will soon be reduced to a heap of rubble. For several months, the demolition of the interior of the building has taken place, and we're told that very soon the walls will come tumbling down. Today we take an affectionate look back over 100 years in the Fun Palace.
The first building on the site goes back to 1889, and if we look over to the extreme left, immediately behind the Castle Mona Hotel, there's a whole series of bricked up windows there which have never been rendered over, and that I believe is now the cinema, or the 2 cinemas as the case may be. That was the first building to be erected on the site, and that was an opera house. There was a previous Palace Ballroom, and that in September 1921 suffered the ravages of a fire, and as a result, in time for the 1922 season, they erected a brand new building, starting from scratch. Creer Brothers were the builders, George Kay and Sons the architects, and it was called the White Palace, because unlike its predecessor, which was mainly glass and corrugated iron, this one was in a rendered finish, painted brilliant white. It was quite impressive, and it was on a par, I suppose, with the very impressive buildings being built at the time up in Cunningham's Camp, which was described as a Monte Carlo.
Peter Kelly. Charlie Skillicorn is now 90 years of age. He recently recalled how he worked as an apprentice plasterer on the building which is soon to feel the demolition hammer. He was also one of the thousands of people who attended the reopening in 1922.
You couldn't get in there for people. There's a pile of, and somebody said some 8,000 to 9,000 people went through the stone style. Whether it did or not, I know there was a hell of a crowd in.
Now, you were one of the boys who actually built her then, after the fire of 1921, yes?
After that, Creers built Edward Waden's son, and his son was an ornamental plasterer. Anything you could draw, he could make.
Yes.
There was a bloody lion's head, and he could do anything like that.
You were apprentice with Edward Wade and
Edward
son.
served me time there, yeah.
Creer Brothers were the builders.
They were the builders.
Can you remember how long it took to build all this?
It was built before I started on it.
Yes.
The brickwork, all that.
Of course. They
Big
put it up in a hurry, didn't they, though, I believe?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Can you remember what it was like before the fire here? Any recollection of that at all?
I think I was in it before the fire, because when it went to fire, there were sea lions in there, and that's what gave them start screeching it when the fire started, and that's how they found the place for the fire.
Right.
The sea lions was in that for the shores.
Right. Now, you went in then as an apprentice plasterer here then.
Yeah.
What do you remember of those days? Can you remember your first day down on the job here?
I can.
Yeah.
I was running the boat for the first day,
Yeah.
and old boss said to me, "You're going to serve your time now," he said. And a handboard was made for me. And Louis sent me the boss, so I'll make Charlie one and travel. I was put on the job, get in there, and I never left them tools never in my hands till I served my time. I never got a chance of that.
Now, there's some very elaborate plasterwork, or there was in there, of course, wasn't there?
Oh yes, good plasterwork.
Who was responsible mostly for that then?
Oh, I don't know who made the first one, but Wales made all the rest. Millennium rebuilt it, they've done it all.
Yes. Did you do any work up on the ceiling in there yourself?
No. I can remember that when I came through them doors there, and all wooden poles was up, and just like looking at a forest, all wooden poles up to that ceiling.
Yes. And what plaster work would you have been involved? You'd have only been mixing the plaster for the boys, would you?
No, I never mixed any plaster.
You didn't? No?
No, I had to go and get stuck in and get working. Plus, a lot of this fibre plaster was put up and screwed up, made, you see, in the shop.
So a lot of ready-made stuff?
Oh, it was all made in Palace Street shop and Wade's shop.
Yes.
He had 4 or 5 men across the water making with him and all.
Yes.
And it'd be about, well, if I sat down at night, I could give you all the plaster. There's a lot of them. There must have been 12 or 14 plasters working here.
Because there must have been a lot of plaster in the building altogether.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What other jobs were you involved with here then on this building itself? I mean, did you do any work on the outside at all?
Well, all them arch molds there, I was working on all them there, them arches down there.
Yeah.
And up on top of there, all up here.
There's a very decorative top to the ballroom here. What is that?
That's all cement work.
Yes. I mean, what is that figure up there? Is it a figure?
Which?
Right on the top.
That's a fish, the two fish. With their tails entwined. That's the one I seen helped to put up.
You helped to put it up, did you?
When it was made in the common sections, you see, it was hauled up.
So who will have made that, do you know?
Wade's son.
Wade's son himself.
William Wade. He was what you call an ornamental plasterer.
Yeah.
He never used handboard trowel cement outside.
No.
He made all fancy plaster.
One man who has good cause to remember the Palace Ballroom with fondness is composer and band leader Ronnie Aldrich. For 13 years, the Squadronaires played to thousands of people each night, from the 50s up to the early 60s, when the Mersey beat was changing the face of popular music forever. The leader was, he admits, quite intimidating.
This was rather frightening, really, because this was this immense ballroom, which everybody had been at great pains to explain was the largest in Europe, bigger than Blackpool, where we had played many times, but unfortunately it was very bare. They didn't have any curtains up, or nothing to speak of, and the sound was, we didn't like it at all. So at the end of the season, they wanted us to come back for another year, and I had a long talk with the general manager and said, look, we want curtains up and a decent sound, and they agreed to do it at great cost, which I couldn't believe at the time.
There's something in the
We had Joe Loss's competition, and
This was at the Villa.
he was at the Villa, that's right, and it was a great, you get people queuing right the way down past the Crescent to come in at night. I mean, it's impossible to think of now. But
Just give us an idea of the number of people that were in there listening to you.
well, a poor night was 3,000 or 4,000. That was a real poor night. An average night was 6,000, 6,000, and on special nights, the largest crowd we ever had was some Manx Grand Prix. They used to have the end of the Manx Grand Prix big presentation and dance. And I've forgotten which year it was, but it was probably near the end of the 50s. But I know we had nearly 12,000 in.
That must have been shoulder to shoulder.
Oh, it was, but there was still room for more. I don't know how they got them in. I don't think they ever let anybody know there was that number in.
Describe the scene. First of all, the balconies. What was actually up there?
Well, nothing very much, really. It just people used to wander about. And there were little cafes down below. Very little in the way of refreshment, really.
So there was no drink on sale?
Oh, no. Not until, I've forgotten when they actually got the licence. I think it was the end of the 50s or the beginning of the 60s. And it was rather a shame because I think that changed the Palace. Although I like the drink myself, the crowd started to alter. You know, we used to get there was always a Derby Castle which used to take the people who wanted to drink. And it, I don't know, it subtly changed. But it was still very good, but they certainly had the bars, and there was always a bit of trouble outside, which was never there before, you know.
What about the dance floor itself, which was a beautiful
Oh,
work of art,
yes,
was it?
a super floor, yes, and they really looked after it. And as I said, there used to be an MC who was dressed in tails with white gloves, and he used to wander up and down all the time, keeping people in order.
It must have been an enormous job, because there were thousands of people.
Oh yes, I know, but they...
Was there much trouble? Was there much...
No, we had no trouble outside sometimes, but never in the ballroom. I can never remember a fight. Never. And most extraordinary, because we used to have the immense crowds, Glasgow Fair Week, and there'd all be Glaswegians and singing along the streets, and everybody used to say, oh, there they are again, but they never made trouble in the ballroom.
The MC would see that right, would they?
Yes, but so he used to get very worried when we played the Gay Gordon, because they used to go mad and thumping, and he used to think the floor was going to collapse, but it never did.
One of the dancers on the ballroom floor back in the late 1940s and early 1950s was our own Terry Kringle.
The Palace Ballroom was without a doubt the place to go, and I was trying to get in, even while I was still at school. I was still 15 and 16. I don't think you were allowed in until you were 18. So what you had to do was get over the railings at the back, you know, where the road runs up to the Falcon Cliff Hotel.
Quite steep there.
Yes, the railings were pretty dangerous too. They were good spiky railings. They knew how to keep people out, but we wanted to get in among those English women, you see, so we used to climb over. You had to be very careful you didn't get your suit all muddy and give the game away. But the management there were pretty smart. They could tell an underage lad who'd come in through the back. I got caught many times.
And got thrown out?
Yeah, I came over the back gate and then was thrown out through the front gate. You know, very politely, mind you. They knew one day I'd pay to come back.
They did have a sort of security man on the door in those days then, did they? Or bouncers, as they later became?
No, they didn't need bouncers. Everybody was very well behaved. There was no drink there either. It was only orange juice, as I remember. I remember the great big orange cupola at one end of the ballroom. That's where you went for your orange squash in between waltzes and quick steps and that kind of thing.
So it wasn't the dancing at all that was important, or the bands. It was the girls, was it?
Well, it certainly was for me and a lot of my generation, without a doubt, and a lot of the local girls that used to go there. And the young people that came on holiday, they were looking for a bit of holiday romance, no doubt about that. And this was the marketplace. This is where you got yourself fixed up for your week or your fortnight.
The Lido is generally accepted to be falling to pieces, and the changing face of Manx tourism has given it a fate unthinkable in those halcyon days 40 years ago. It's to become, for the time being anyway, a car park. Palace Group Chairman Jonathan Clegg.
It was with great sadness that we had to pull it down. Really, it's a little bit unsafe, and there is no call for a hall of that size now in the modern tourism in the Isle of Man.
It was the site, I think, of a disco for some years. That, in fact, was mostly the reason why it just kept going for as long as it has done.
Yes, we used to have shows there about 8 or 10 years ago, but the numbers dwindled, and people came to dance after the shows, so we thought it was logical that we make it into a disco, and we won Best Disco in Britain award. Unfortunately, as you know, the number of visitors coming to the island makes a big hall like that hardly viable, and we couldn't afford to keep it open for just the TT weeks in the year.
A look back at the history of the Palace Lido, presented by David Collister and John Moss, and broadcast in 1991. You're listening to 50 Years Serving the Island, a series of programmes featuring highlights from Manx Radio's archives as we celebrate 5 decades serving the public in the Isle of Man. A major event in the year 2000 was the opening of the Millennium Oakwood at Balafletcher in Braddon, a project conceived to permanently commemorate the millennium. The wood was created in a mass planting session on the morning of the 9th of March. 6,868 trees were planted by the island's primary school children, one for each pupil at the time, and the vast majority of these trees are still standing today. It was a huge event with many thousands gathered at the site, and Manx Radio provided live coverage throughout the morning with Andy Wint and David Collister. Here's a short selection of highlights from the broadcast.
Well, the Speaker and the Chairman, Noel Kringle's here. You're waiting for a signal?
No, I'm actually just trying to hold off now for a moment or two, David, because we've actually had a little bit of a hold up on getting the children onto the field. They've done extremely well, really have done brilliantly, but they're almost on, and it would be a shame now not to have the majority on the field. There's only the last few to get onto the field. As the weather is kind to us, I think we can afford to wait that minute or two, don't you?
I do indeed.
Yeah,
now, what
absolutely.
a tremendous day, though.
Unbelievable. It's absolutely smashing. If the children don't remember this, and remember this, Oakwood, David, you and I have failed miserably.
We certainly will remember it, I'm sure.
Yes, it's excellent. You can feel the buzz in the air, as it were, and we're about ready to run, so I think it's any moment now.
Just a few more to come in fact, there, yes.
Way at the far back, but I think we could really go underway.
Well, it's just a matter of waiting now for a few more. I think the signal is going across now to the speakers to make this official introduction, I suppose you could say, to the Oakwood.
Thousands and thousands of people, David. I think they're almost ready now.
Yes.
Edgar Quine, the Bishop and Connie Huck on the stage. The signal's gone from the Speaker of the House of Keys. I think they're about to. Connie's got her script.
Right.
Oh, she's still writing.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, boys and girls. A big welcome to you all, and in particular to the boys and girls. And I must say they make an absolutely wonderful sea of colour. It's lovely to see you all here. We have the privilege to live on a beautiful island which is very rich in its history and in its culture. Our distinct Manx identity is something of which we are rightly proud. In truth, it is a gem of God's earth, and long may it remain so. Today we are adding to another of our island's assets, our natural environment. The Oakwood, the boys and girls have planted today, the miracle of the little acorns that you planted some months ago, is your gift to future generations. Your Oakwood, your lasting contribution to island life, your gift to the future people of this island. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I will now call on the Right Reverend Noel Jones, Lord Bishop of Soderman, to ask for God's blessing on today's creation.
Almighty God, we have come together today to plant these oak trees as a memorial of our millennium as Christian people. Help us, we pray thee, to grow tall and straight and strong in your service, as these trees which we have planted will grow strong to lend beauty to this place, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
On an occasion such as this, such an important event in our island life, it deserves to be commemorated in words and music, and so it shall be. To mark the occasion, Mrs. Marilyn Cannell has written the Oakwood Song, which of course is sung to the tune of My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. The singing of this song will be led by Miss Michelle Grogan, the BBC Young Chorister of the Year, of whom we are very proud indeed. And music will be provided by the Manx Youth Band.
I planted an acorn, I hoped it would grow as
much indeed, Michelle. Thank you.
What a great voice. Fantastic, isn't she?
We are grateful to the BBC for making the Blue Peter team available to cover this event. With me is a lady that very clearly needs no introduction, but she does need a very warm welcome. I will now call on Connie Hook, presenter of Blue Peter, to declare this Oakwood well and truly planted. Connie Hook.
Hello, everyone. Wow, what a big noise. I've spoken to lots of people in my time. I've seen lots of people because obviously I go filming to all sorts of places with Blue Peter. But I don't think I've ever had the privilege of 6,500 people and such enthusiastic, energetic people at that. So I'm very, very privileged to be here today. And I have to say, you all look great in your hats, so colourful, and I can make out all the different schools, which is really good. The idea of planting an Oakwood is so nice because you're always hearing of places where buildings are being made and new shopping centres and all sorts of things. But it's really rare to put something back to nature. And it's really brilliant that all of you are each going to plant a tree. Because just think, in 100 years' time, when we're all gone, people will be walking in your woods and you all own a bit of that wood. And even when you're grown up, you'll be able to go there and think, I planted this tree. And that's just such an amazing thing to think a little acorn could grow into a huge, massive tree and a whole wood at that. And it's very bizarre to think that where we're standing now will be a wood in years to come. And I'm very, very honoured to be declaring the whole ceremony open. So once again, a huge thank you to all of you, and thanks for inviting me here today. And I want you all to give yourselves a big round of applause and a big cheer now. Louder than that.
Now, the fireworks display, some people may well have noted that there were some sandbags on top of the tin-walled hill, the stone tin-walled hill feature. They're holding down some of the firework holders, in fact, and there are a lot of other fireworks which are set around the various tiers of the hill. Now, these aren't fireworks that you would normally see at night, of course. They are daylight fireworks, and what they do, I understand, is to provide a shower of confetti. I don't know which direction it will now blow. It'll probably blow in the direction of Tremode, but a shower of confetti is due to come out from the fireworks and virtually cover the people that are nearby.
It'll probably end up at Clucas Cleaners in Tremode.
That's right.
I tell you, there's some very proud faces around this field.
It's a wonderful day.
There are so many people, and not only the politicians and the administrators and the people from the Forestry Commission who've helped get this together, but everybody. When Connie was talking about that, I was watching the kids' faces, and they were absolutely enraptured about this. And I think the whole concept of a Millennium Wood is now coming home to roost, because a lot of the children have grown acorns, they've now got small saplings, and now they're actually in the earth, and from this moment on, they're growing into a wood, David. It's fantastic.
I was looking up a bit about oak trees, as you would for a
right,
thing like
boys
this.
And girls.
Ah, now the fireworks, I think, is starting.
Connie wants you all to say together, 3, 2, 1, and then she will press the button. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
There go the fireworks. I've never seen daytime fireworks before.
No. They are very bright. They're like huge sparklers.
All around the giant sword, which is pinning the orrery into the space-time continuum. A ring of fire and fireworks.
Now, there's the bang, there's the confetti.
There they go.
Right up into the sky.
It is, and another
40,
one.
50, 60 feet high.
Yes.
Blowing down in the direction of Tremode.
There it goes.
It's going down there. I mean, it's coloured, and it looks like a flight of very small birds.
It does, doesn't it now? It looks like you're driving through Santon when all the starlings are coming across.
That's right. And there it goes down the hillside. Now, let's see who we've got here. Which school are you, Nan?
Balaclone.
Balaclone. And what's your name?
Robin.
You're Robin.
Tony.
You're Tony.
Rachel. Susanna.
You're Susanna.
I'm Ben Harris.
Hello.
I'm Dean Stevenson.
Right. Who's the best tree planter here? You are.
I am.
Right. Let me go and have a look with some of these other youngsters here. Now, you're a big tall chappie, aren't you?
No.
Oh.
I am.
Who are you then?
Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew, and who are you?
Ryan.
Ryan. Hello, Ryan. How are you doing, Ryan?
Michael.
Yeah. Have you planted your trees yet or not?
No.
Well, are you Ballaclone as well, are you?
Yes.
Yeah. You're going off to plant your trees shortly, aren't you?
Yeah, he's the shy one.
Are you the shy one?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, they're going off to plant their trees now. That's Ballaclone. And I'm going down now to hopefully talk to Noel Kringle, who's walking away from me in the distance. But of course, Noel has been the powerhouse behind this particular day. And he's meeting up here now with Peter Caron. Hello, Peter.
Oh, hello, David. It's very good, isn't it? It's nice to see money being spent on something that will be of benefit for the future.
Yes, indeed. Noel, you must be particularly pleased, though, because, I mean, the fact is that mostly your efforts have gone into driving this.
Well, I suppose I'm guilty of driving people from time to time, and if I've had to drive people for this, they've gone along willingly in the end. And the joy of it is that, in fact, the children are here. Everybody must have sensed the atmosphere. I think they've enjoyed it. I think everybody can go home tonight knowing that we've had a thoroughly good day. And David, I have to say again, 50 years' time, these children will be coming back to this parkland, a parkland of oak trees, and they'll say, I can remember being here at the opening. Isn't that wonderful? Really wonderful.
A short selection of highlights from Manx Radio's live coverage of the Millennium Oakwood opening in Braddon on the 9th of March in the year 2000. You've been listening to this week's edition of 50 Years Serving the Island, and you'll shortly be able to hear this programme again, along with lots more exclusive content from Manx Radio's archives by going to manxradio.com/portal.